All right, hey there, folks. Even as book tour conventions are finally back on track, I'm still bringing book tour to you. So welcome to Russ's Rockin' Rollercoaster, Season 7, intriguing interviews with creative minds. Now, I'm just going to give everyone a quick heads up. If I sound a little nasal and congested, I am. I actually have COVID. I'm okay. It's just like a crappy cold, so I figured I'd power through. So anyway, all right. So ever since I was a kid, I've always loved tales about private eyes, so tonight's show is a real treat. Matt Coyle is the author of the best-selling Rick Cahill crime series. His books have won the Anthony, Seamus, Lefty, Ben Franklin Silver, Forward Reviews Book of the Year, and San Diego Book Awards. Matt was also named the Mystery Writer of the Year for 2021 by the San Diego Writers Festival. Welcome, Matt.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. Just a heads up for the folks at home. Feel free to send me notes or questions you have for me or Matt in the chat box during the show, and we'll get to a few at the end. All right, Matt, as we always do, we're going to start at the beginning. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
First of all, I think the Forward Book of the Year, I think I was a runner-up. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, I just upgraded your status. There you go.
I don't want to have stolen valor. I was born in LA, grew up in Santa Ana. Well, I did not grow up. Lived my first 4 years of my life in Santa Ana. Then my family moved to San Diego. And I've lived there. I've lived here almost all my life. I went to school ventured as far north as Santa Barbara, which is 200 miles north. And that's about it. Unexciting life.
Well, I bet it's more interesting than you think it is, but we'll be the judge of that. Really. All right. So did you have brothers, sisters?
Yeah. 3 sisters, one brother who just passed away last year, sadly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's a big Irish Catholic family, although the Catholic, we were pretty lay. My dad was supposedly Catholic, but he never went to church. So were.
Where were you out of the 5? Where were you in the
4?
So you were 4.
I was 4. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And
how much older? So how much older was what was the difference in ages between everybody?
My old sister Jan, I think is about 6. No, it's about 7. Tim was 5.5. Pam's 3 to 4. And Jennifer, my younger sister, is about 4 years younger than me, I think. I lose track.
So how does that work? So, normally, so if you're the oldest or the youngest, you kind of get these weird, either, you have all these expectations, or you're the favorite to get away with everything. And the middle child usually is, the one who has all the problems, but you're sort of within the middle zone. So how did you get lost in the shuffle? Was at that point, were your parents just worn out and they're just like, dude, just don't burn the house down and you're all good?
I think my brother was a bit of a trailblazer in many ways. So, and my sister, my oldest sister, Jan, who's the oldest in the family. And I think that I probably was just as awful as they were, but because there was only a couple of them around at the time, they got a lot more hell for what they did than what I did. So, plus I was an athlete in high school and all that, and I kept my hair fairly short. So I think people thought I wasn't an Eddie Haskell type, but I knew how to behave when I needed to. So I think people thought, well, I was a much better kid than I was.
So you knew how to. So perfect for a private eye, right? You know how to blend in at the right time.
Right.
That's right. So were you
bullshit my way through anything?
That's right. So were you close with any or all of your brothers and sisters?
Probably closest to my middle sister Pam when we were kids, because we were the age was close enough where we do things together. I mean, not socially, but athletically. She was pretty athletic too, and badminton in the backyard, things like that. But as life progressed, I became an adult. I think I've got a lot closer with my brother, probably maybe than any of my siblings.
Okay. So what about your parents? What'd they do?
My dad was in insurance. He insured contractors for all the years that I knew him. And my mom was a homemaker, although she was a stewardess for United before she got married in DC-3s, long time ago. You could not be a stewardess and be married. So once she married my dad, she had to quit the job. But they ended up getting divorced, as happens. When I was in college, so they were married about 25 years, and up and down marriage, but good people. My mom was one of the nicest people that you'd ever want to meet.
So it's interesting. So I actually work in the real estate business, so I know a lot about contracting and constructions and whatnot.
Right.
So did your dad, like, did he show you his business at all? Like, did you ever go to construction sites? Did you ever?
No.
No.
No, I was not interested at all. And I don't know, I don't think he was interested in showing me at all. There was always some sport I was playing, baseball or football or something.
Right.
But I later in life, I learned more about what he did when I was a kid. I had I had insurance. That's all I knew. I didn't even know that he insured contractors until I was older,
Right.
living in my own little world, probably.
Well, I guess like a lot of us do.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I've been to San Diego many, many times. Were you a beach kid?
I tried it one summer. I am Irish and I have very white skin.
Yes.
My mother was Portuguese, part Portuguese.
Hmm.
And so two of the kids have olive skin and then two have horrible Irish skin. So one summer I tried to hang out with everybody. This was a long time ago. I'm older than you are by over a decade. And so sunscreen, I don't know, maybe the only thing we had was the real thick stuff. What do you call that? You used to put on your nose.
Right.
So I didn't put on enough sunscreen, and I turned orange one summer when I hung out with everybody. Tried to be cool, but down by the beach, and turned orange. In fact, I remember when I was at a 7-Eleven one night. We were trying to get a buyer, of course. I think I was probably 15 or 16. And we gave up on the buyer and just went in and bought a soda or something in the 7-Eleven. And that guy behind the counter said, "Man, you got to do something about your skin." Just a little side note. Yeah, I was orange pretty much the whole time. One thing when I was a kid, very horribly white skin. When I was in 6th grade or so, I went to the beach with a friend and his family, and I got a horrible sunburn on the back of my legs that I couldn't even go to school Monday. And that week, hair started growing on my leg. It was a defense mechanism. So
Right.
to filter the sun. So that's about all I got for Irish skin for you.
So when I was about, I don't know, I was probably in my mid-20s. I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and I don't remember if I rode my bike across the bridge or if I took the subway, but I went out and hung out at Battery Park City. And if you don't know that, that's on the west side of Manhattan, lower Manhattan, and there's a beautiful park down there. And I had it was a short, no, it was a long sleeve shirt, but I had the sleeves rolled up and I had the shirt unbuttoned like this, right? But it wasn't that hot that day. It was probably only low 70s, and the breeze was coming in off the water. So I was laying out, like this, and I thought it was, I didn't feel anything. The next day, I had like a lightning bolt sunburn right in the middle of my chest, like I'd been branded, and it was like I could barely move for like a week. And after that, I was like, you know what? I've got to cover up after that. I don't, I actually have some Greek heritage, so I've got sort of, sometimes I get darker, but God, I went from white to like, emergency room red pretty quickly.
Very painful.
Yeah. So
I learned later in life that you can put red vinegar on sunburn and it helps. And actually I've used it on myself and my ex-wife, and it does take some of the sting out. The red vinegar, red wine vinegar.
Who knew? Okay. Who knew? All right. See,
you don't want to get in the position where you have to use it.
Well, fair enough. But still, and that's what we do on the show. We give PSAs whenever we can. All right.
Try to help.
That's right. So when you were a kid, you were kind of a sports kid. What were your friends the same way?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Almost all my friends were athletes of some sort, but like I said, I was in high school in the late 70s, if you can believe that. And, the drug culture was around. And so we were smoking marijuana too and drinking. I started drinking way too early. But was able to dial it down when necessary. So, I had this pretty good reputation, but I was probably just smoking as much weed as anybody else.
Yeah.
Long-haired guys, friends of mine. And but so most of my friends were exactly that, athletes, and got high and drunk. After the football game on Friday nights, you would get hammered on old English 800.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh.
And then I would go sweat it out on the dance floor after the high school dance. And at that age, your body could, recover really quickly.
That's right. That's right. So you were you played the part. You played the part for the cameras, and then when the camera switched off, the real you came out. The other you came. The other you came out.
Stupid kid. Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Most of us have been there at one point or another.
Yeah.
Were you as a kid, while you were playing sports and maybe discreetly raising some hell, were you a reader?
Yes, absolutely. I've read all my life. I've read crime all my life. Um, that's still what I read. When I'm writing, I read crime fiction. I'm fine with it. I don't worry about it coloring what I'm writing. I started probably with Agatha Christie and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, probably around the same time. And then I told the story before, but then when I was, I don't know, 13 or 14, my dad gave me The Simple Art of Murder by Raymond Chandler, which is, it's an essay he writes about writing detective fiction or crime fiction, plus a bunch of short stories. And I liked, when you're a kid, I was 10, 12 years old when I was reading Agatha Christie and Conan Doyle. It's good and bad, black and white. It's puzzles, and they're solved. And bad guys lose, good guys win. And you like that. But then I read Chandler, I thought, wow, there's a lot of gray here. And then by the time I was read Chandler, I was becoming kind of a, obnoxious 13, 14-year-old, which is when it usually happens for a boy, at least. And the whole idea of, wow, maybe the good guys, not that I was rooting for the good guys, but wow, life's there. It's not black and white. There's some gray in this, and the good guys don't always win, and bad guys are really interesting. So that pretty much changed my life. I started read Chandler in college. I had a detective fiction class in college. I read MacDonald, who is much more prolific than Chandler, of course, Hammett, John D. MacDonald, Lawrence Block. So and to this day, I read, even when I'm writing a book. I know a lot of authors don't like to read the genre they're writing at the time, but maybe I'm not stealing from anybody, although maybe subconsciously I am, but I just love the genre.
Yeah, I read crime fiction all throughout the year. If anything, I find it's the opposite. I like to get the rhythms and the tones and the way they frame up things. It just sort of like, right. I find, if anything, it helps me stay grounded into that world, rather than, like, I'm not afraid of saying, well, I mean, look, shadows are shadows, alleyways are alleyways, right? They're a gang. The core elements are going to be there anyway. So it's not like they're coming up with something. Oh my God, you went down a dark alley? I never thought to do that.
Right.
Right. All right. So what about TV? Were you in movies? Were you into like crime movies and TV shows? Was that your thing too, or?
Oh, we never watched TV when I was a kid. That's a lie. That's a lie. That's all we did. Wild Wild West.
Ooh.
Learn the the 3 scene, although it's kind of split into 4 idea. Every after 15 minutes, if you remember, you're probably a little too young.
I didn't watch it.
James, at the first commercial, there would be, they'd do a stop action and they turn it into animation. There'd be some cliffhanger, James West, first 15 minutes. Next commercial was at 30. Next commercial was 45. And then you see the end, and they had these 4 little blocks that would kind of synthesize what had happened. And I watched, Mannix and all that stuff. So yeah, I watched all kinds of TV. I watched a lot of sports, of course, but yeah, I watched crime all the time whenever I could.
I've actually had a guy on about a year or so ago, I had a couple of private eyes actually come on the show and talked about, what's realistic and what's not. And one guy is actually coming back next week. I'm going to do a whole hour on him. He said, and he's been an active PI for 30 years. He said, by far, hands down, the most realistic private eye TV show was the Rockford Files. I
was just going to say that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And I think that I hadn't even thought of it until you met. I mean, of course, I've watched the Rockford Files and read Stephen Cannell, but I really think that kind of influenced my work more than I think about it, because although my guy Rick Cahill is a little edgier than Jim Rockford was, but it's the same kind of deal. You're trying to make a living. You're trying to, it's not easy. Weird cases, simple cases turn into, twisty cases, but
Right.
that whole kind of day-to-day life, it's not all glamorous.
That's right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
of course, the stuff you're writing about better be exciting.
That's right. It's great to write about the beautiful dame, but a lot of it's, sitting in a car and farting into your
Right.
for 12 hours.
Right.
All right. So while I want to get back to San Diego for a minute, while it's known for its great weather and beaches and the gas lamp district, of course, San Diego also has some fairly sketchy parts of town.
Yes.
Did you, did you experience that, for you? Was that part of your life, or did you kind of just stay out of that?
Wasn't too much of my life. I was in the burbs mostly, making as much trouble there where where you really weren't in a whole lot of danger except for your own stupidity and alcohol related incidents. But no, I didn't really go down to Southeast San Diego, as we call it. And I did, there were times when you'd be hitting dive bars all over town.
That's right.
And I wrote about, so I put some of those in some of the books. One of the books, Rick actually says, I think it was about the fourth or fifth book, but he meets somebody in a bar, and it was the kind of bar that he'd never started a bender in, but ended many.
Yeah, okay. I know exactly what you mean. Those classic.
Yeah. And those kind of bars are kind of more prevalent than you would think in San Diego. They're everywhere.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, if you're not from San Diego, most people go there. Most of them, it's either business travel or tourism, right? You go down to the convention center. Now they got Petco Field, the gas lamp district. It's, all that stuff, and you go to the beach. But there's a lot of areas that, all you have to do is wander off a couple of blocks in the wrong direction, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what?
Exactly right.
Exactly right. You're gonna get rolled if you're not careful.
Right. Petco Park, actually, you could make a couple wrong turns and,
that's right,
get yourself into trouble. And even the beach, there's
that's right.
there's occasionally there's trying to think of the specifics. There were
is that Mission Beach? Am I remembering?
Well,
that
there's
right?
Mission Beach, but more of the surfer beaches are La Jolla and some in PB.
Right.
Mission Beach is horribly congested. You can't park there.
Right.
But when there's been, the surfers are very protective of it used to be, I don't know if it is anymore, very protective of their water, of their beaches, and they don't like outsiders coming in. And there's been, I don't think this was that situation, but there was a kind of a surfer gang where
little Point Break, little Keanu Reeves coming in.
But they actually kind of cheap shot is one or two of them cheap shotted this kid who was an athlete, and if you're taking a punch when you're not ready for it, he ended up dying, and I can't remember what happened to them. Actually, I think they went to prison. Right. But the other one, when I think about San Diego, when I think about what I'm writing about, I think of the beginning of Blue Velvet, where you've got this idyllic house that you're seeing, and then this perfect lawn. And as the camera zooms back or in, it kind of goes down, you've got the teeming beetles underneath.
Right.
So I think that's true of almost any area. But yeah, I write about La Jolla a lot too.
Right. It's the underbelly.
The underbelly underneath all that. So that's what I like to write about San Diego because I live here. It's easy for me to get out. I always like to get out and explore areas that I'm writing about.
Right.
But sure, you just can't write about paradise all the time.
No, not at all. All right. So back in my younger days, I spent several years working in various restaurants doing all sorts of things. I was a waiter, I was a greeter, I was a busboy, I did all sorts of stuff. I understand that you spent some time in the restaurant business yourself. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I worked in restaurants when I was in high school, college, and then when I graduated with an English degree, I went to work in a restaurant that my brother was managing at the time, Chuck Steakhouse, because that's what you do with an English degree is you go work in a restaurant.
Of course.
And I was gonna write the great American novel. And
you did. You wrote seven. You wrote 7 of them.
8 actually, but I guess only 7 were great. But that's okay. Thanks. But I didn't know what I was going to do. My brother, I was fresh out of college. I was living with my mom while I was figuring things out. And he calls me one night and says, "Hey, I need a dishwasher down here." I said, "Hey, I'm watching a football game. It's Monday Night Football." And I just got high. I don't think I told him that. But so I said, "Can't help you." Called me an hour later, really need somebody. So I went down there, washed dishes for a couple nights, and then I started busting tables, and I ended up working in that restaurant. I worked my way up to manager years later. So I worked in that restaurant, Chuck Steakhouse, for 10 years.
Wow. Do you like it?
All the time. Pardon me?
Do you like it?
I didn't like it as much. I didn't like it as much as I should have. I don't think I was a particularly happy person back then because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Right.
But no, it was, you had money every night, which was good and bad.
Right.
Because you're all wired after you're done with your shift.
Right. That's the thing. A lot of people don't realize that after you work a shift, you have so much adrenaline pumping. Yeah. You can't go home and go to sleep. It's impossible. No. It's like it's not quite the same. It's like a cop, right? You need 5 hours to let that burn off you.
Right.
It's not easy.
So there was alcohol, there was marijuana, there was cocaine. There were, the cocaine doesn't really help the come down, but so there was some of that lifestyle. I did quit drinking when I was 26. I quit drugs when I was 30, so that was a long time ago. But I actually quit drinking while I was in the restaurant business, and it was kind of a
that's trial by fire.
Yeah, it was interesting because I saw some people that had been me, and I didn't like them.
There was a guy I knew, 2 guys I think of in particular. At one point I was a waiter in a catering hall, weddings and bar mitzvahs and that kind of thing. And we became friendly because, he was a tall, good looking guy, very charismatic, but he was always kind of like leading me into a little bit of trouble. And I'm not the guy who leads other people into trouble. I can get led into trouble, but I don't lead into trouble. And, we did so one, we had a double shift. And it was, I forget, we worked like a wedding in the morning, it was like 10 to 3, you go off for 2 hours and you come back at 5 to set up. He's like, let's go. We went back to his apartment and he had a 3-foot bong and and I never do this. I'm not that kind of guy. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I'm really fucked up. I can't work. This is impossible. So I thought, the genius that I was, I'll dilute it all. I was guzzling literally a gallon of water, and they were laughing their faces off because the water, I was puking it up. I was drinking so much water. And I came back from my next shift, my eyes were barely open and I'm stuffing, a 30-pound tray of, steaks and fish. And one of the waitresses comes up and says, "Russ, your eyes are looking a little red there." I'm like, "Yeah, my allergies are killing me." She's like, "Allergies?" Right. Sure. Yeah. So that was my one and only time of being a bad boy while I worked. And I don't, but anyway. All right. So I also understand. So also once upon a time, I was a golfer, although not bad for my age, but I don't play anymore. Tell me about your golf life.
Well, it's funny you should mention it because I just picked it up again in the past few months after not playing for probably 10, 12 years. I worked in the golf business after I got out of the restaurant business for 10 years, I think. And I worked for some very small, struggling companies. And I worked for one rocket ship, which was Odyssey Golf, before it was bought by Callaway, and then while it was bought by Callaway, which was the hottest putter at the time, which was just crazy. It's kind of sales job where you just answer the phone. You didn't have to really sell. You just had to say, ask how many. Right. Yeah. So ironically, my best golfing days were when I was in the restaurant business because I worked mostly nights, even as a manager. And the weekends I would come in and cut meat and things like that. But during the day, somebody else would do it, and during the weekdays. So I was playing maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and I got decent. So I don't know, maybe down to about a 13. But when I was in the golf business, the one thing about the golf business is that you could get onto some courses, either really severely discounted or for free. Right. But my game was much better when I was in the restaurant business. And now it's pretty horrible. I'm learning how to play again, but I love it. I'm probably more into it now than I ever was. Plus, it doesn't help when on Instagram there's, I don't know, unlimited amount of people you can follow on the golf swing. And there's some really good stuff. There's this Japanese guy who he'll have something in English, subtitle in English, but it doesn't really, it just says thank you for watching. Right. But just watching him, this guy's swing is incredible. And you can tell that he's really giving some good lessons, but I can't understand anything. But so I'm hooked on golf again, which I enjoy. My girlfriend plays, which is fun. So, but I was never a very good golfer, but I was in the biz for a while. It was an interesting biz.
So
Sales.
I actually have one golf story I'll share quickly. So I was playing, and I started when I was about 12 or so, and I played for, I don't know, 8 years. So I was on the golf team in high school, and my game was getting, at that time, pretty good. I was probably, I don't know, about 17, 18. I was probably averaging, high 80s for 9 holes. I couldn't hit the woods, couldn't control, I teed off with irons, but I was more than holding my own. And I was getting better and better and better. I was like, really found my groove, right? We played at the counties out in, if you follow it all, at Bethpage out on Long Island.
Oh, sure.
Right. I mean, and we played, what course? I don't remember which one. It wasn't the black course. That's impossible.
Right.
I started off great. It was a par 4, I think. I chipped on in 2, hit a 30-foot putt for birdie.
Wow.
Second hole was a par 3. It was one of those deals where you're up here, there's a big dip, and then the green is over here. I was just off the fringe in 1, chipped on in 2, hit another 30 putter for par. And the guys around me, like, they're like, who are you? Like, dude, this is incredible. I got up to the 3rd tee. I stood up there and I got the yips. I had a complete and utter meltdown in real time. I was putting balls in the woods, hitting them sideways. It's like my body just rejected my swing completely, because you need to roll that top wrist so your wrists don't roll. Mine was open like a baseball swing, so my wrists were naturally rolling, but I had sort of like figured out how to not do that. Well, my brain said, that's it, no more. And for 16 holes, it was just pure, utter humiliation. I probably shot like a 2,000 that day, and that was it. And at that point, it was either rebuild my swing from nothing or forget it. So I mostly forgot it. Anyway, all right, just a quick interlude for folks who came in a little late. If you have any questions or comments for Michael, send them in the chat box and we'll get to a few at the end of the show. All right, so you finally transitioned into writing crime fiction. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, I worked for 4 golf companies in 10 years. Started small, then I got up to Odyssey, and then when Callaway bought them, within a year they shit canned everybody. So I was working for a company called Carbide, and I saw the handwriting on the wall. This thing was going down. I'd been through it before. Not that Odyssey went down, but it was bought. And something that happened there, which happened to me in later life, was when I was working for a sports licensing company. But at Odyssey, when you look up, and I saw all these people I didn't recognize in the sales room, and the talk is, hey, we were just acquired. These are the Callaway management. And then they say, hey, don't worry, nothing's going to change. And of course, at that point, you better get your resume ready.
Right.
But I was working for Carbide Golf, and I saw the handwriting on the wall. This place was going to go down. It was going under. I was 43 at the time, I think. And all my life, I thought I was going to be a writer. I never wrote. I made the mistake of telling people that I was going to be a writer. And, I always had the excuse, well, I have a full-time job. But of course, when you start writing, you realize everyone has a full-time job.
How it goes.
So I said, when this thing goes down, I'm going to write, I had a little money saved. I'm going to take some time and write a book, or I can't pretend like it's something I'm ever going to do. I have to find a career. Instead of going from job to job, I have to find a career. I got to change my whole life. And sure enough, it went out. Company went out, and I wrote. I was only writing 5 days a week back then. Now I write 7 days a week. But I had my little used IBM ThinkPad with floppy disk that I had on my kitchen table every day, and I wrote every day, 5 days a week. And it was probably the best 5 months of my life, because I really felt I was doing something that I was meant to do. I finally was, I was old. I was 43, but I was finally doing this thing I was supposed to do. Now, I was writing in what I call a cocoon. No one else is seeing it.
Yep.
I would revise every day. I read a lot of books about writing, writing anything but writing fiction. Lawrence Block always revised, and everybody does it, but Lawrence Block said he revised everything he wrote the day before to start that next day, and it always helped. And so I thought I would read the stuff I'd written before. I thought, hey, this is pretty good. This is, in fact, it's fucking genius. And I ended up showing something to my dad, who was probably happy that I was following up on something, but probably wasn't happy that I was trying to be a writer. Although it's sort of in my family. My great aunt was Mary Chase, who wrote Harvey, the 6-foot invisible rabbit.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Did you?
Was she hit my dad's aunt?
Was she ever? Did you ever meet her, or did she?
I met her twice.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, she died when I was pretty young.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Clearly, she was Irish and liked to drink. She wrote about a 6-foot invisible rabbit.
There you go.
And that I found later in life. In fact, when I was doing a gig a few years ago, they asked me something unusual about my life, and I thought, well, nobody knows this. And I of course, I knew it, but I didn't realize that she won the Pulitzer for that.
See, you come from a descendant of Pulitzer Prize winning authors. I mean, come on, it's in the blood.
Apparently, yeah.
It's in the blood.
So anyway, my dad would read some of it, and he was being unusually encouraging for him, which wasn't really in his DNA. But so I thought, I didn't really know what I had a book here, and after 5 months, I thought I'd written a book, because on the first page it said chapter 1, and the last page I'd written the end.
Right.
So I thought I had a book, and I was ready to never have to look for a day job again. I didn't know I needed to get. I didn't know anything about the biz. Knew I needed to get an agent. I figured I'll get the agent, sell the book, buy a home in La Jolla, and never have to work again a day in my life. A day job. So luckily, a guy I'd worked for in the golf business was working for a sports licensing company. He called me, swear to God, about a week after I finished that, which became the first draft I thought was a book. He said, hey, we need somebody in sales over here. You want to come do it? And I said, well, Eric, I just finished my book, and I probably can only help you for a few months, but I'll come over. And I worked for them for 16 years. Because I learned what I thought was genius was basically crap. It was a first draft, like all first draft of all first books aren't very good.
Right.
I took a writing classes from Carolyn Wheat at UC San Diego Extension classes, who she's a award-winning crime writer or mystery writer, and great teacher. And because a lot of people that go to these adult writing classes don't really write, they think they want to write, but they need a little pushing. But I had a whole draft done, so my shit was on the board every night, and I learned how bad it was. But years and years, revision, working that day job, so necessary. I wrote 6 books with the day job, and 6 published books, and then I quit. It's been 3.5 years. I can't believe it's been that long. Quit the day job 3.5 years ago on my 60th birthday. That's not the day I quit. That was my first day of not working was my 60th birthday.
Oh, good.
And I flew. That day I had a gig in a hotel, something called bedside reading that Jane Ubelmeyer had invented. And I was a supposed full-time writer at that point, and I was doing a gig at a hotel, so it's kind of cool. It's my 60th birthday.
Right on. Good for you. All right. So private eye fiction is a very specific subset of crime fiction. Why PIs specifically?
I read, excuse me, I read PIs all my life. As I mentioned earlier, Chandler, McDonald, among others. And I always think of PI fiction as a lot like a Western, where you've got a solo protagonist who's probably got a little bit of a dark history, has been good and bad, and he's pretty much alone. And although Rick deals with the town he lives in, although greater areas than he actually lives in, but it's a solo gig, and even the people that hire you aren't necessarily all in your team, and that always appealed to me. And the voice, the first person voice appealed to me, and that's just what I started writing. And of course, I wrote. I was an English major, so I wrote in college. Wrote some really bad short stories, and they weren't all in first person. But
right.
I started writing. I think when I started writing the first Rick Cahill book, I don't think I started in first person, but very quickly it went over to first person. And I just like the idea of the gray that we mentioned about Chandler. And I think the best, any kind of writing, of course, but crime writing involves character. So character comes first. And I had this character, it took me 10 years to get published. So I had this guy that I was writing and learning with each revision of the first book. I learned more and more about him. And then I was really hooked by the time I was finally published. But crime, I think one thing about crime is that, like I said, character is important, and crime can it could show character. And there's no greater crime than God's greatest sin, is killing someone. And the reverberations of all the things that happen there, it's not just the dead guy or gal. I mean, their story is pretty much over. There's some backstory, of course.
The
but it's the family, it's the people left over, right? The dominoes, and even the killer. How does it affect them? And then the private. And my guy tends to get emotionally involved in cases that I write about, of course. So I never thought about writing anything else.
So let me ask you. So I write a PI series as well, and I write some other things too. But I write in first person as well, and first person is an interesting choice because, on the one hand, personally, I don't know if you feel the same, is that when you write first person, to me, as the author experience, it's much more intimate for me. It's all about this person. I'm always in one person's head all the time. I try to think the way they think, feel the way they feel. How would they respond to things? And it's really invigorating. The challenge, however, is that character by necessity must be in every single scene.
Right.
It's impossible. There's no other way to do it from first person.
Right.
So how do you feel about kind of that juxtaposition there?
Well, I think it's a challenge. I'm right now writing the 10th Rick Cahill book. 9 comes out in November. But I'm going to take a pause after 10. And I'm going to do something different. I have an idea for perhaps another series in third person, which will be a challenge. I've been in one guy's head for 20 years.
That's right.
In first person. So it's going to be a challenge. I think it's good for me to challenge myself at this point. There's also business, financial reasons to try to do something else and break out. But so that's going to be completely different for me. And the whole writing in first person, and I'll write crime, of course. I won't write anything else. But the limitations are you can't, for at least some of the murders, the one he has to solve, you don't see it. You don't see how it happens. You can't bring that visceral action to the screen. But of course, my guy has killed people.
Right.
He's had people killed in front of him. So there's a lot of visceralness to come. But the key, one of the hardest things there's hard about writing a series, which I'll mention, but writing in first person is that you have to make him interesting. And my guy walks, I think, the edge of being unlikable at times, and which is fine with me, but it's a delicate balance,
right?
Because there has to be tension. If you're just writing about a guy's, is whatever the word, there's tension, there has to be reason for tension,
right?
Reason for tension. And part of it is because of his damaged soul.
Yeah.
And so that's sometimes, I've written books that I thought, well, people just aren't going to like him in this one. And I'm okay with that. Right. I think the people that have followed me from book 1 will be okay if he's really this dark. And those have ended up being some of the better reviewed books. But yeah, there's plus you don't want it to get stale, and it's hard not to tell the same story over and over again, right. At least emotionally.
That's right. I want to hit that beat. So in a way, private eyes are sort of like superheroes. And what I mean is, so if you write, for example, Batman, who's my favorite superhero, no matter how, Batman's been a character in fiction for, 70 years or whatever it's been. So there's been, 1,000 Batman stories. The challenge is that, over time you would think, well, the guy's just going to learn stuff. He's going to grow at some point. How could you not? But the problem is if he changes too much, then he's not Batman anymore. And I'm not writing a Batman story. So I have to kind of work with inside this box where I'll let you kind of explore certain parts of your personality, but you can't really go too far afield or you're just not you anymore.
Yeah, I think you sum that up better than I ever have, as a matter of fact. And what I think has happened with my guy is I originally was not, he was going to have no growth. I was originally going to have, he was not going to have, there was going to be no love interest. There's a dead love interest in the, his backstory, but there's going to be no love interest, no sidekicks, none of that, just his moroseness. And then in my second book, I needed a PI for a scene, and it became Moira McFarlane, and that changed everything for me. I don't think I would have been able to write 8 books. People wouldn't want to buy him. It's just this morose jackass.
Right.
Now he has a friend. Of course, he's always had a dog. Now he has a friend. But what I've done is I kind of roller coastered him, and I think because of what I think subconsciously I was doing how you described it is because he's growing here, but then the other part of his personality takes over, and then he falls again. And so there's some rises and there's a lot of falls. And so there's a growth, but the arc is a roller coaster. I don't think it's one of these. I think it's one of these.
That's right. All right. So one last question I want to get into. So, and you just touched upon it in the last couple of minutes, but ultimately, are you more interested in telling a good mystery or focusing on character?
Character. Yeah, character by far. For me, the way I start a book, it's always I have a nebulous idea, but what is going on in Rick Cahill's life, that personal life, that I can make worse by giving him a case. And sometimes they interlock, but more probably 6 out of the 8 published ones didn't interlock. Right. It's just something that makes his life more difficult. But I think it's always character, no question. And then I'm always kind of because my process is so messed up that I don't outline. I'm more organic now than I ever have been, but I just trust the process. So the story, to me, the character drives the story. Character actually drives the plot. What I have to make it as real as possible in this unreal world that I've created. Right. But what can make Rick's life more difficult at this point, and being within this everyday life of real. So character is everything for me.
Right. Okay, that was great. Now it's time for a special segment on the show where we spin the wheel. On the wheel are 7 possible categories. Wherever it lands is what you get. The categories are Stranger in a Strange Land, Cold Case, Music Lover, Quantum Leap, Desperately Dreaming Dexter, Put Me in, Coach, and Kick Him in the Junk. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Round and round. There she goes. No whammies. What we got here? We got for you.
Wow, it spends a lot.
Oh, Stranger in a Strange Land. I think I know what your answer is going to be, but you're going to get asked anyway. You've spent your career writing about murder, mystery, crime, and PIs. What's one genre you'd like to write that you haven't dabbled in yet?
Honestly, I can't. Well, maybe subgenre, if I can do that. I don't know if that counts. I'll give you 2. Okay. One subgenre would be police procedural, but that takes way too much work. The other one would be science fiction, which takes way too much work. I mean, I read Bradbury religiously when I was a kid. So, but you got to create a whole world and everything. That would take me about 4 years.
Yep. Yes, I know that well. Okay, so now we have a section where you're going to pick your poison. We have 3 options for you, A, B, and C. I'm not going to tell you what the choices are. Just pick a letter.
Is there a check involved with any of this, or?
No.
Okay. We'll go with B.
B. And B is, what do we got? We got advice column. Okay, you and I are both in the writing business. What's the best and worst writing advice you ever got?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I think I don't know of any bad writing advice I've gotten, but the best is you have to write. And I mean, it's so stupid. That's what everybody says, but it's the absolute truth. You have to write when it's easy, which is rare. You have to write when it sucks. You have to write when you have absolutely nothing you can write about. And you have to write when you're busy. You have to write. I mean, I don't have a family like you do, but you know as well as anybody. But I think that some of the best writing I've ever done comes out of that time where I think I've got nothing today. This is horse shit. I've sat here for an hour staring at the monitor, typed, 300-400, maybe an hour, I'd probably type 50, 60 words. And then once I'm able to push past that, sometimes things open up.
That's right. All right, very good. All right, so we're almost at the end of the show. So now we're going to give you some truth serum. All right, I got 10 questions. I'm going to ask you, just answer right at the top of your head. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Favorite flavor ice cream?
Chocolate.
All right, pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Nay.
Bucket list destination?
Ireland.
Scariest movie you ever saw?
The Exorcist. I was young.
Yeah, that was terrifying. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Fuck. Fly. Who didn't want to fly?
All right. Do you play a musical instrument?
No. Love music. Can't play anything.
If you could, which one?
Used to be saxophone when I was really into jazz, but now I'm thinking as the older I get, guitar.
All right. You can only have one, wealth or friendship.
Friendship.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
You can see a live performance, sports, music, theater, whatever. Any seat, any venue. What's your choice?
I'd say music.
Specifically.
Specific musician.
Hmm?
Well, I'm going to see Chris Stapleton in about a month, and I've seen him once. It's fantastic, but I'd probably like to see Carrie Underwood or Jason Aldean again.
All right. Okay. Most impactful, where were you then moment at any point in your life?
Oh shit! It would probably be 9/11.
You were in San Diego at the time?
I was in San Diego driving to work.
Yeah.
The other one would be the Apollo mission the Apollo mission went down, or JFK. I was alive when JFK died, and my mom was crying. I had no idea what was going on.
Couple of big moments. All right, that was great. We have a couple of minutes, so we'll take a couple of questions from the audience if we have any. If not, I got a couple that I didn't get to before. So I'm going to ask you real quick. In private eye fiction, there are certain tropes that kind of go with kind of classic PIs. What tropes do you like the most, and which ones do you think kind of, if any, have sort of maybe they don't land anymore?
Oh God. Sorry, doors open. I'd say maybe femme fatale, but there's still, why can't women be a little dubious as well? I don't know, maybe femme fatale, because just for different times, maybe.
So we got one question. What's the blue statue on your bookshelf right behind you?
Oh, there's two. One was the Lefty Award, and the other was the same conference where I was the Master of Ceremonies at. I'm not sure they call it, man. They don't call it Master of Ceremonies. They call it Toastmaster. San Diego, Left Coast Crime, 2020. COVID hit. COVID stopped everything that week. We had a one-day conference, and it was supposed to be 4 days, and didn't have to do much, and I got a trophy for it.
Oh, right on. See, participation trophy. All
Very
right.
much.
Okay, so one more. So if the publishing world at large said to you, Matt, you can pick from any PI character in history. We're going to give you permission to write your own. You can pick up the franchise, just do what you want. What franchise would you want to jump into?
Well, I'd have to fight Joey Day for it, because they're already doing it with Philip Marlowe.
That's a classic.
And Joey Day just wrote a Marlowe novel.
All right, very cool. Okay, so just bear with me for 1 minute, folks. I'm going to share my screen, and I've got some stuff to share with you. Hang on 1 second. All right, I do this wrong sometimes, so hang on 1 minute. Okay, so Matt, what do we got here? Talk to me.
Last Redemption, that's the latest Rick Cahill novel, came out last November. It's Rick and potentially one of the best moments of his life. He learns that his fiance is pregnant with a child, and a week later he finds out that he has CTE, the chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the pro football disease. And of course, he keeps that to himself. He doesn't want to ruin all the great stuff with his girlfriend or fiance. And he ends up helping his best friend, Moira McFarland, who I mentioned earlier, try to get her son out of trouble. And in that, he learns the meaning of a family to some degree, but is not may not stay alive long enough to even see the birth of his child. Nominated for a Barry Award and a Lefty Award, which I lost.
Well, I'm sure it was deserving nonetheless. All right, and you've got more Rick Cahill coming out, correct?
Yes, Doom Legacy comes out November 15th, I think, and I'm right now, just this very day, I'm writing the 10th Rick Cahill book.
All right, sounds great. So everyone, if you haven't already, dive in and buy some Rick Cahill books. They're great. Okay, so as for me, I'll encourage you to check out my noir novella collection, Murder in Montague Falls. So the setup here is that these are 3 noir novellas, all 3 tales. It's myself, Sonny Hatton, and Patrick Thomas. We did one each. The protagonists are all teenagers, and the crimes are all set in the same fictional town of Montague Falls. They all went to the same high school, but the crimes happen across 3 different decades. So mine, which is the first story, which is called Red Ink, is set during the 1980s Russian Red Scare, where a paperboy, back when you could have those jobs, is out collecting one night, and he thinks, but is not sure, he sees one of his customers get murdered, freaks out, and then as a 15-year-old with James Bond dreams do, decides to investigate himself. And we follow him down that rabbit hole. In the second story by Sonny Hatton, it's set in the 90s during the Satanic Panic, where 3 teenagers, especially these 2 guys, are drawn into this one mysterious girl who's into pentagrams and devil worship and that kind of thing. And it becomes a little bit of a love triangle. And it's probably the darkest and maybe the bloodiest of the 3. And the last one by Patrick Thomas is set in the 1950s, and it's your classic noir. A sultry high school teacher seduces one of her students in the hopes that he will murder her husband.
There you go.
There you go. So Murder in Montague Falls is available on Amazon and published by Crazy 8 Press. And you can also get one directly from me. Okay, I want to thank everyone. That's our show. Thank you, Matt, for stopping by. We had a great time. I want to thank everyone who's watching at home. I'm your host, Russ Colchamiro, and I'll be back next week. All right.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me and getting off the sick bed to do it.
All right. Take care. Bye. All right. Bye now.